Hello, and welcome back to Seek the Joy podcast. Happy Seek the Joy Tuesday. I'm your host, Sydney Weiss, and guys, it is a solo episode kind of week, and truthfully, I was not planning on releasing an episode this week, but it is Saturday night, and I've got a lot of thoughts and a lot of reflections, and my brain is just moving. Like the thoughts they're just free flowing. So all of this is truly organic, and we'll see where it goes. I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about growth and evolution and really stepping into it. And I also want to talk about worthiness and recognizing that we are enough. Okay, so this year in particular, the last couple of years has felt huge when it comes to growth and change and evolution. And I know I'm not alone in this sense, in this knowing that we are changing every single day. Who you are today is not who you were a month ago. It's not who you were 6 months ago or even a year ago. And often when we are so aware of our growth, when we are aware of the changes, when we are aware of our own evolution, it is downright scary. I have had so many moments in the last 6-7 months where I really feel terrified by my own evolution, where I feel terrified because I can see the growth and I am excited about it and I am trusting it and I am just aware that it's happening. But I am terrified because I often don't feel like I can handle it. I don't know if that makes sense or if you can resonate. I have a feeling you can, but often when we are in the middle of these changes, when life is moving so quickly yet slow at the same time, when the evolution is happening, where you're shedding layers of who you used to be, when you're shedding layers of who you thought you were, and fully embracing and allowing the new to step forward and allowing yourself to shed the old in order to embrace the shiny and the new that is you, it's terrifying because we often don't really know or recognize what we're actually capable of. And so there's something I thought about a month ago, which was don't be afraid to accelerate. Don't be afraid to accelerate into what's next for you. Often in the midst of growth and evolution, we hold ourselves back because the familiar is the comfortable. The familiar and the comfortable is the known, and the new and the change and the evolution and the growth and the future is the unknown. And so what's interesting too about all of this, and I can sense I'm talking in a circle, but we're just going to go with it, is that when you shed layers of who you used to be, of who you thought you were, of the ways in which you spoke to yourself or spoke to others, and the version of yourself you want to share with the world, as you begin to shed all of that, it often also means that you shed and let go of people, places, and things that accompanied you on that aspect of your journey. And it is so important to allow what is not meant to be in your life, in your sphere, in your space, in your energy field. It's so important to allow those things to fall away, because the harder we try and hold on to them, the tougher and the tighter we grasp onto those things, onto the familiar, onto the known, onto the comfortable, we choose stagnation over growth. We choose remaining in place, remaining in the mud, in the grit, in the difficulty. We choose that which is often familiar instead of allowing ourselves to accelerate. And as you begin to let go, as you begin to release your hands and your grip, you allow yourself to accelerate. But to accelerate into what's next, to accelerate what is here for you and what is meant for you, requires you to trust. It requires you to trust that you can handle it. It requires you to trust what is coming for you. And it requires you to trust that above all else, no matter what you do, whether it's a step to the left, a step to the right, a step forward, or a step back. It is in fact a step that is meant for you on this journey. And I have talked about this at length in my life on this podcast, but every time we are met with a roadblock, a moment of difficulty, and it's an opportunity to allow ourselves to redefine and realign ourselves on the path of our choosing that is in true alignment with who we are. Because at the end of the day, I do believe in destiny. I do believe there are things that are here for us, that are meant for us, but you have to have the courage to align yourself with those things, to be receptive, to often step into your feminine, to step into the space of receptivity, to allow it all to come forward and all to come through. But often, in order to get into that space of receptivity, to step into that feminine, or as so many of us call that divine feminine space where we honor who we are and we honor our truth and our calling, it requires you to be firm in your masculine as well, to know your boundaries, to know your limits, to speak up for yourself, to exercise your ability to speak up for yourself, to also balance it though with the compassion and the understanding of your truth. And in many ways, I think that is what is being asked of us in this moment. It's this opportunity to say, I am going to stand firm in who I am and what I believe in and speak my truth and honor my truth, but also be able to be compassionate towards thyself and towards others, right? To allow space, to hold space for ourselves and for others, to exercise forgiveness, to exercise compassion, to understand and know that you can have both the feminine and the masculine at the same time. And it's so interesting because I'm being reminded of something I journaled a couple of weeks ago, which is that I think more and more, in order to accelerate into what's next, to trust it. Because isn't that the largest hurdle, that element of trust? It's about releasing the need to worry about what comes next, because what comes next is coming, whether you intensely focus on it or choose to release your intensity. So release your intensity around what's next, and instead relax into your trust. It's so interesting because I said this earlier, but I have been so aware of the growth and the evolution and the change. And I think in some ways that element of awareness that we all carry within ourselves is what really allows for greater healing. So trust more deeply and speak more fully the truths that are asking to be spoken. I sound so serious, but I believe in this so wholeheartedly, and I am so passionate about this. You have a voice, you have a story. It deserves to be shared. You are worthy of sharing your story and worthy of sharing your truth. And the more that we do this together, the more that we come together to share who we are, to share our voice. I can even hear that my voice has shifted a little bit since the beginning of this recording. When we do this, we speak more fully and confidently and wholeheartedly from that space in between our chest, from our heart, from our knowing. I just got like full on body chills. But trust your growth. Trust your evolution. Trust this return to your truth, because a return to our truth is a return to greater compassion and a greater empathy and greater understanding. And in order to uplift ourselves, right? Because that's what we're doing with this work, with exploring who we are, with exploring our passions and our joy, and what I like to call our joy blueprint, and trusting it and honing in on it and having conversations surrounding it. When we do this, it's a return to greater compassion and a choice to uplift ourselves. And when we uplift ourselves, we uplift others, and then by extension, the planet. And the planet needs this uplifting. And the more that we do this, And the more that we walk more fully and more deeply into it, and every voice that begins to embody its authentic truth, its authentic vibration, is an expression that allows for greater deepening of our individual journeys and of our journeys together as a group, as a consciousness, as a community, as a planet. And it's a process of surrender, right? Because when we surrender into this, we surrender into our truth and into our knowing. And it's a return to love. Because I've said this before, and I will say this probably for the rest of my life. Who we are at our core is this essence of love. And by expanding and owning and acknowledging your truest and purest sense of self, this sense of love, of knowing that that is who you are, you allow the space, I think, for others to step forward more fully into it as well. But at the same time, to step forward more fully requires this level of awareness of the space that surrounds who you are and who you are for yourself and who you are for others and who you are for the world and to the world. And so when we allow this balancing that I spoke about earlier of this divine feminine and divine masculine, and when you allow that self to take up space, right? When you allow it to take up space in both your physical human body and in the world by extension, then you allow that spiritual, soulful, heartful, heart-centered sense of self to do the same. So, take up space in your growth, take up space in your evolution, take up space in your knowing and your understanding that you're here for a reason. And as you grow and evolve, and as you begin to balance more of who you are, and you allow yourself to let go of what is not meant for you and accelerate into what is meant for you, I think you start to feel more at home in your growth, and you start to feel more at home in the change and the evolution. And this brings me to something else that I was thinking about earlier this morning, and what I might have intended at first for this solo episode to be about, which is this concept of being enough. That when you exercise your voice, when you share your voice, when you stand true and firm in who you are, it's a recognition that you are enough. You are enough right now, just as you are. That you don't have to do anything different, that you don't have to look different, say anything different, that by being fully present in your body in this moment, that allowing yourself to fully embody and to be embodied is enough. But isn't it interesting and funny, but not like in a haha funny way, but just like funny, that often our journey to recognizing that we are enough means we encounter moments and lessons and opportunities that force us and ask us to fully recognize who we are. But to do that, we often first have to question it. When you're faced with a moment and you're asking yourself, am I enough? Am I successful enough? Is my voice worthy of being shared? If I do share my voice, if I do share my story, if I do share my truth, if I walk the path that is my own, will anybody else listen or care or acknowledge it? Here's the thing. And this is probably the biggest foundation for this show and for what I'm sharing and what I'm creating, which is that every single person, as you are right now, you are enough. We are enough. We all have a story that is worth sharing. We all have a voice that is meant to be shared. It's so interesting. I've had so many people in the last almost 2 years of doing this show send me an email or a DM or just share in general that I have helped them find their voice or feel more empowered in their voice. And I have to admit, it's hard for me to believe because I have spent most of my life, if not all of my life so far, feeling really scared and embarrassed and ashamed at times to share my voice because I grew up with a lisp. I sometimes talk so fast because I get so excited that I stumble over myself, and then I question, should I have even said anything at all? I know you know what I'm talking about. But it is really humbling and empowering to know that together we are empowering ourselves and empowering others to share our voice, to remember our voice, and remember that it is a voice and a story and a truth and an authentic expression truly of self that is worth sharing. So trust your growth and trust your expansion and trust the calling to share your voice. I have a feeling that in the next year to 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, we collectively will feel more called to sharing our voice in whatever way feels good to you, whether on a podcast or on social media or in a blog, a newspaper, on TV, whatever it might be. And when you feel that pull and when you feel scared to do it, do it. Because that is really what it's about. And that is what this growth and this evolution and this change is about. And I honestly do not know what I just said in the last 16 minutes, but I'm going to trust that it was meant to be shared. And that's what I want to keep doing. I want to keep sharing. And I can't believe we're almost at 2 years of Seek the Joy podcast. And we're here to empower. And we're here to explore our joy and our passion, all to bring about greater healing together. And so I will close with saying this. If you're listening to this podcast and you want to share your story and you want to share your journey and your joy and your truth, send me an email. Because whether it'll be on the podcast or on our blog, on Joy Corner, I want to share who you are. Because that's how we're going to heal. And that's how we're going to grow and step more fully and confidently into that growth and into that healing. And there was just a horn outside, so I'm going to trust the exclamation point that the universe just gave us and gave me. Thank you guys for tuning in to what is likely one of my longest rambles, but I'm just going to trust it. And if you have been listening to this show and you haven't already, hit subscribe, leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, and share this show, share this episode, share what we're doing with your friends, with your family, on your social media pages, wherever makes the most sense. I would be eternally grateful. I want to do more solo episodes. I say this all the time. How do I end this? I think I'm just going to say thank you. Thank you for trusting this message. Thank you for trusting your growth and the change and the evolution. And I will see you right back here next week for another Seek the Joy Tuesday.